In a small town surrounded by green fields and bright blue skies, a girl named Mia lived a happy life. Mia was only 12 years old, but her spirit was bright and full of joy. She loved playing outside with her friends, helping her neighbors, and caring for animals. Every morning she would run to the nearby park, her laughter echoing through the air like sweet music. One sunny afternoon, as Mia played with her friends, the skies suddenly darkened. A low rumble filled the air, and the ground shook beneath their feet. Confused and frightened, the children looked up to see strange ships descending from the clouds. These ships were unlike anything anyone had ever seen. They were large and metallic, with sharp edges and glowing lights. The children's laughter faded as fear took hold of their hearts. The townspeople gathered in the streets, staring at the sky in disbelief. Suddenly, a loud blast echoed, and the aliens began to attack. Bright beams of light shot down from the ships, striking buildings and sending people running for cover. Mia's heart raced as she saw chaos unfold around her. The once peaceful town turned into a scene of terror. "Mia, run!" her friend Jake shouted, pulling her hand. But she was frozen in place, watching the horror before her eyes. The bright light illuminated her face, and she felt a mix of fear and anger. The aliens showed no mercy. They targeted everyone in their path. As Mia ran, she stumbled and fell to the ground. The noise of destruction surrounded her, and she felt a wave of panic. She looked back at her friends who were trying to escape, but the chaos was overwhelming. In that moment, everything changed. An alien ship loomed overhead, and a blinding flash struck. Mia cried out, but her voice was drowned in the noise. When the dust settled, silence fell over the town. The once vibrant community lay in ruins. People emerged from hiding, their faces pale with shock. They gathered in small groups, searching for their loved ones. The sight was heartbreaking. Buildings were destroyed, and many were hurt. But the most devastating loss was that of Mia. As the townspeople searched for survivors, they found Mia lying motionless on the ground. Her bright spirit had been extinguished too soon. A wave of grief swept over the community. Parents wept for their children, and friends clung to each other, sharing their sorrow. The news of Mia's death spread like wildfire, igniting a fire of rage and sadness in the hearts of the people. In the days that followed, the town held a memorial for Mia. People came from far and wide to pay their respects. They shared stories of her kindness and laughter, remembering the joy she brought to their lives. As they gathered, a sense of unity began to grow. The people realized they could not let Mia's death be in vain. They needed to stand together against the alien threat. During the memorial, an elder named Mr. Johnson spoke to the crowd. "Mia was a shining light in our lives," he said, his voice trembling with emotion. "We must honor her memory by fighting back. We cannot let these aliens destroy our home and our future." His words struck a chord with everyone present. The grief they felt began to transform into determination. That night, the townspeople held a meeting to discuss their next steps. They talked about the attack, the pain of losing Mia, and the need to protect their community. Fear and anger filled the room, but there was also a sense of hope. They knew they had to do something. The aliens had taken one of their own, and they would not rest until they avenged her. As they made plans, the image of Mia lingered in their hearts. Her laughter, her kindness, and her spirit inspired them. They were no longer just a town, they were a family, united by their love for Mia and their determination to fight back. With each passing moment, their resolve grew stronger. They would not let fear control them. They would stand together, ready to face whatever came next. In that dark hour, Mia's memory became a beacon of hope for the community. They promised to fight for her, to protect their home, and to ensure that no one would suffer the same fate again. The tragedy of Mia's death had awakened something powerful within them, a will to survive and to reclaim their future. After the tragic loss of Mia, the town was filled with sorrow, but it was also buzzing with a new sense of purpose. The people gathered in the town hall, a large building where they could discuss what to do next. The atmosphere was tense, fear mingled with determination as they prepared to face the alien threat. Everyone wanted to honor Mia's memory by taking action. Mr. Johnson, the elder who had spoken at Mia's memorial, stood at the front of the crowd. He cleared his throat, and the room fell silent. "My dear friends," he began, "we cannot let the aliens win. We must protect our homes and families." The people nodded, their hearts beating in unison, ready for a fight. Then an old man named Mr. Harris raised his hand. He was known as the town historian, and he had spent his life studying the past. "There is something I need to tell you all," he said, his voice trembling with excitement and fear. "Many years ago, our ancestors built an ancient fleet of ships. These ships were powerful and equipped with advanced technology. They were meant to defend humanity from threats, but they have been forgotten." A murmur spread through the crowd. "Forgotten?" someone asked, confused. "What do you mean?" Mr. Harris continued. "The fleet is hidden in a secret location deep in the mountains. Only a few know how to find it. But if we can revive these ships, we can stand a chance against the aliens." Hope flickered in the hearts of the townspeople. They had heard stories of the ancient fleet, but most believed it was just a legend. Now, it seemed that their salvation lay in the past. "How do we find this fleet?" a young woman named Sarah asked, her eyes wide with anticipation. Mr. Harris smiled, his eyes gleaming with determination. "We must travel to the mountains and locate the entrance. Once we find it, we can bring the ships back to life. But we will need everyone's help." Without hesitation, the townspeople agreed. They began planning a journey to the mountains, gathering supplies and making preparations. The children were assigned tasks, and the adults discussed strategies. The spirit of unity filled the air, pushing away the darkness that had settled after Mia's death. The next day, the group set off early in the morning. They traveled through the fields, their hearts filled with hope. As they climbed the mountain trails, the air grew cooler and the sound of birds filled their ears. Each step brought them closer to the hidden fleet. After hours of walking, they finally reached the entrance to a cave covered in vines and rocks. Mr. Harris stepped forward, pushing aside the branches to reveal a dark opening. "This is it," he said, his voice filled with awe. "The entrance to our past." With torches in hand, the group entered the cave, the darkness swallowing them. Inside, they found a series of tunnels filled with ancient symbols and drawings that told stories of battles fought long ago. As they ventured deeper, excitement grew among them. They could feel that they were close to something incredible. At the end of the tunnel, they discovered a large chamber, and there, resting in the darkness, were the ancient ships. They were covered in dust, but still magnificent. Their sleek forms and powerful designs spoke of a time when humanity had been strong. The townspeople gasped in amazement. Mr. Harris led them closer. "These ships were built for a purpose," he explained. "They are equipped with weapons and technology far beyond what we have today. With them, we can fight back." The group quickly got to work, cleaning and inspecting the ships. Some worked on removing the dust, while others checked the systems. They worked together, their hearts beating in rhythm with hope and determination. As they labored, they felt a bond forming, a connection not only to each other but also to their ancestors who had built these ships. They realized they were not just reviving a fleet, they were reclaiming their strength and spirit as humans. Days turned into weeks as they repaired the ships, fueled by the memory of Mia. Each time they felt tired or overwhelmed, they remembered why they were doing this. They were fighting for her and for all who had suffered. Finally, the day arrived when the ships were ready to launch. The townspeople stood together, looking at the fleet that had once been lost. They cheered, their voices echoing through the mountains. Hope was alive, and they were ready to take back their world. With the ancient fleet at their command, they felt empowered. Together, they would stand against the aliens and protect their home. Mia's memory would guide them as they prepared to face the battle ahead. The time for revenge had come, and they would not let her down. The sun rose over the mountains, casting a golden light on the ancient fleet. The townspeople gathered around the ships, their hearts racing with excitement and nervousness. Today was the day they would unleash their power and take back what was theirs. They had worked tirelessly, repairing the ships and preparing for battle. Now the moment had finally come. Mr. Harris stood at the front, his face lined with determination. "Today we honor Mia and everyone we lost," he said, raising his voice so everyone could hear. "We will show the aliens that we are not afraid. We are strong, and together we can defeat them." The crowd erupted in cheers. "For Mia! For our town!" they shouted, their voices echoing off the mountains. The energy was electric, filling the air with hope and courage. The people climbed aboard the ships, taking their positions and preparing for what lay ahead. Each ship was different, but they all had one thing in common: they were built for battle. The crew members took their places at the controls, feeling the power of the ancient technology beneath them. The hum of the engines filled the air, a sound they had longed to hear. As the last person boarded, Mr. Harris turned to his crew. We must be ready for anything. The aliens will not expect us to fight back. We have the element of surprise on our side. Let's make it count! With a deep breath, he pressed a button, and the ships roared to life. The ground shook as the ancient fleet lifted off the ground, rising into the sky. The townspeople watched in awe as their ships soared high above the mountains, the sunlight glinting off their surfaces. They were no longer just a small town, they were part of something much larger. The crew members communicated with one another, their hearts racing with excitement. "We're really doing this!" Sarah shouted, a grin spreading across her face. "We're going to show those aliens what we're made of." As they flew, they kept an eye out for the alien ships. It wasn't long before they spotted them, dark shapes moving against the bright sky. The aliens had returned, and they were just as powerful as before. But the townspeople were ready. They had trained for this moment, and they were determined to protect their home. Mr. Harris took a deep breath and gave the command. "Prepare for battle! Let's show them what we've got." The ships positioned themselves for attack, their weapons systems activating. Bright beams of light charged up, ready to be unleashed. The crew members felt a rush of adrenaline as they locked onto their targets. "Fire!" Mr. Harris shouted, and the ships unleashed a barrage of energy beams toward the alien fleet. The bright lights filled the sky, illuminating the darkness as the beams struck their targets. Explosions erupted in the distance, sending shockwaves through the air. The aliens were caught off guard. They had never expected the townspeople to fight back. Confusion spread through their ranks as they struggled to respond. The ancient fleet moved with precision, evading incoming fire and striking back with power. As the battle raged on, the townspeople felt a newfound strength. They were fighting for each other, for their home, and for Mia's memory. Every shot they fired was a tribute to her spirit, a reminder that they would not back down. In the midst of the chaos, they spotted the lead alien ship, a massive vessel that loomed ominously above. Mr. Harris knew that if they could take it down, it would send a strong message to the rest of the fleet. "Target that ship!" he commanded, pointing to the enemy flagship. With renewed focus, the crew aimed their weapons at the alien ship. "This is for Mia!" Sarah yelled as she pressed the button to fire. The beams shot through the sky, striking the flagship with incredible force. The explosion lit up the area, and cheers erupted from the crew as they saw the alien ship begin to crumble. But the battle was far from over. The remaining alien ships regrouped and charged at the townspeople with renewed fury. The townsfolk braced themselves for the fight ahead, knowing they had to push through to protect their home. Together they fought bravely, refusing to give in. They were united, stronger than ever before, and they knew that victory was within their reach. As they unleashed the ancient fleet, they were no longer just a small town. They had become warriors, ready to defend their future. With each blast fired, they honored Mia's memory and stood up against the threat that had once seemed so overwhelming. Today, they would reclaim their lives, and nothing would stop them. The battle raged in the skies above the mountains, the air crackling with energy and tension. The ancient fleet fought valiantly against the alien forces, but the true test lay ahead. As the townspeople navigated their ships with skill, they felt the weight of their mission. They were not just fighting for survival, they were confronting the very beings that had taken Mia from them. Mr. Harris, still at the helm of his ship, could see the chaos unfolding around him. Explosions lit up the sky as beams of light collided. "Stay focused, everyone," he shouted over the comms. "We must protect each other and keep moving forward." The crew members were determined. Sarah gripped the controls tightly, her heart racing. "We can do this! We're stronger together!" she exclaimed, rallying her fellow crew members. As the battle continued, the townspeople began to notice a pattern in the alien attacks. They were moving as if they had a single mind, coordinating their efforts to counter the fleet's assault. Mr. Harris's eyes narrowed. They're not just random fighters, he thought. They're part of a larger force. Suddenly, an urgent voice broke through the chaos. "Mr. Harris, we have a problem. There's a huge ship heading straight for us." The crew's faces blanched as they turned to see a massive alien warship looming in the distance, its dark silhouette blocking out the sun. It was larger and more menacing than anything they had faced before. "This is it," Mr. Harris said, determination filling his voice. "That ship is the command vessel. If we can take it down, we can turn the tide of this battle." As the warship approached, the crew prepared for the confrontation. "Everyone arm your weapons!" Sarah called out, her voice steady, despite the fear brewing inside her.
This is our chance!
The alien ship fired a volley of energy beams, illuminating the sky. Mr. Harris shouted, "Evasive maneuvers! We need to outsmart them!" The crew expertly maneuvered their ships, dodging the incoming fire as they closed the gap. The moment of truth had arrived. The townspeople focused their energy, working together to maximize their firepower.
"On my mark!"
Mr. Harris commanded. The crew counted down, adrenaline pumping through their veins. 3, 2, 1, fire! A torrent of energy beams shot toward the massive alien warship, striking it with explosive force. The impact sent shockwaves through the air, and the crew erupted in cheers. They could see the ship's shields flickering, but the alien vessel was still operational. "They're not going down that easily," Sarah said, her eyes locked on the enemy ship. "We need to hit it again." Just then, the alien ship retaliated, unleashing a barrage of fire in their direction. The townspeople braced themselves as they maneuvered to avoid the blasts, but one beam struck a nearby ship, sending it spiraling out of control. The crew inside barely managed to escape as their ship exploded in a flash of light. Panic rippled through the fleet.
"We have to stay focused,"
Mr. Harris shouted, trying to maintain control.
"We can't let fear take over. Remember why we're here."
Taking a deep breath, the crew rallied together. They could not let the loss of one ship derail their mission. They remembered Mia's spirit, her laughter, and her love for their town. They fought for her and for everyone they had lost.
"Let's do this!"
Sarah yelled, determination shining in her eyes.
"For Mia! For our town!"
With renewed energy, they charged toward the command vessel again, their ships flying in perfect formation. Mr. Harris called out, "Aim for the engines! If we disable them, we can board and take control." The crew focused their fire on the warship's engines, beams striking true. They could see the alien crew scrambling as the ship began to falter. The townspeople cheered, feeling the tide turn in their favor.
"Now's our chance,"
Mr. Harris shouted.
"Prepare to board!"
The townspeople maneuvered their ships closer, using the ancient technology to create a boarding bridge. They could see alien soldiers moving about, their faces filled with anger and confusion. The crew steeled themselves for the confrontation ahead. As the bridge extended, Mr. Harris led the charge, his heart pounding.
"For Mia!"
he cried, leading his crew onto the alien vessel. The townspeople faced their enemies, prepared to fight. They were no longer just a small town. They were warriors, ready to reclaim their future. The confrontation had begun, and they would not back down. This was their moment, and they were determined to win. The battle aboard the alien warship was fierce. Mr. Harris led the townspeople forward, determination shining in his eyes. They had come too far to turn back now. With each step, they felt the weight of their mission. They were not just fighting for themselves, they were fighting for Mia and everyone they had lost. As they pushed deeper into the ship, they encountered alien soldiers, their weapons ready and faces filled with rage. The townspeople were outnumbered, but they had something the aliens did not: the spirit of unity.
"Stay close!"
Mr. Harris called out. "We can do this together!" The crew members fought bravely, using their knowledge of the ancient technology to their advantage. Sarah, with her quick reflexes, ducked under an alien soldier's attack and countered with a swift strike. "We're not afraid of you!" she shouted, pushing back against the fear that threatened to consume them. With each encounter, the townspeople grew more confident. They fought with the strength of their love for their home, and the memory of Mia inspired them to push forward. The alien soldiers were strong, but they were also confused. They had never faced an enemy like this before, humans who were ready to stand up for themselves. As they reached the heart of the warship, Mr. Harris could see the control room ahead. "That's where we need to go," he said, pointing to the door. The crew moved as one, charging forward and breaching the control room. Inside, they found a group of aliens gathered around a large console, their eyes widening in shock at the sight of the humans.
"Stop them!"
one of the aliens shouted, but it was too late. The townspeople stormed in, overpowering the aliens with their numbers. Mr. Harris moved quickly, disabling the console with a few precise strikes. The control room erupted in chaos as the aliens struggled to regain control.
"We need to take this ship!"
Sarah shouted, her voice cutting through the noise. "If we can command it, we can stop the rest of their fleet."
"Let's do it!"
Mr. Harris agreed, focusing on the console. He started inputting commands, trying to understand the alien technology. The townspeople kept the aliens at bay, working together to secure the room. As Mr. Harris worked, he felt the weight of responsibility pressing on him. He had to make sure they could turn the tide of the battle. Just then, an alarm blared and a voice echoed through the ship. "Intruders detected! All security teams, report to the control room. Time's running out!" Mr. Harris exclaimed. "We need to move quickly!" With a final push, he accessed the ship's main systems and took control. "I've got it!" he shouted, feeling a surge of hope. "We're in command now!" The townspeople cheered, their spirits lifted. But they knew the battle was not over. They had to act fast to disable the alien fleet and prevent any more attacks on Earth. "We need to power up the weapon systems," Sarah said, looking over Mr. Harris's shoulder. Together, they worked on the controls, activating the ship's weapons. Mr. Harris glanced at the display screens, watching as the alien fleet still fought above. "We can't let them escape," he said. "We have to take them down!" "Firing sequence ready," Sarah reported, her heart racing. "On your mark! Fire!" Mr. Harris commanded, and the ship unleashed a wave of energy beams toward the remaining alien vessels. The beams struck true, tearing through the enemy ships, causing explosions that lit up the darkened sky. As the townspeople watched the alien fleet crumble, they felt a mix of exhilaration and relief. They were winning, but the fight had taken its toll. They had lost so much already. With the alien forces in retreat, the control room fell silent except for the sounds of victory. Mr. Harris turned to his crew, pride swelling in his chest. "We did it. We fought for our home, for Mia, and we won." As they secured the control room, a sense of peace washed over them. They were no longer just a small town. They were heroes who had stood against a powerful enemy. The battle was over and a new dawn was beginning. The crew looked out of the control room's large windows, watching the remnants of the alien fleet retreat into the distance. The sun began to rise over the mountains, casting a warm glow across the sky. It was a new day, a new beginning. The townspeople had fought bravely, and now they would rebuild. They had learned the power of unity and strength. As they stood together, watching the dawn break, they knew they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. They would honor Mia's memory by continuing to protect their home and each other. The ancient fleet had served them well, and they would never forget the strength that came from standing together.